the matter is settled.
Tim Staples, thanks so much for another fine hour.
Too much fun, my friend.
It's nice to have a bonus hour of open forum with you.
All right, brother.
Coming up next, Dr. Stacy Trasancos, chemist and theologian. We're going to talk about evolution. We're going to talk about evangelizing, all that, and how one is related to the other when we come back on Catholic Answers Live.
This is Archbishop J. Michael Miller of Vancouver, Canada, and you're listening to Catholic Answers Live.
Have you subscribed to the Catholic Answers Radio Club newsletter? This is Catholic Answers Live host Cy Kellett, and I want to tell you about our new weekly newsletter full of behind-the-scenes information and facts you need to know about the show. It's easy to sign up. Just visit CatholicAnswersLive.com and look for the newsletter sign-up box on the front of the page. It's a great way to keep up to date with what's happening with the show and see what's coming in the days ahead, delivered weekly into your inbox. Sign up today for the Catholic Answers Radio Club newsletter and see what you've been missing. Go to CatholicAnswersLive.com.
How can the Eucharist truly be Christ's body? Does belief in the real presence mean that Catholics are cannibals? Do the Bible and early Christians support Catholic teaching on the Eucharist? In 20 Answers, the Eucharist, you'll find smart, solid answers to these questions and many more, helping you deepen your own appreciation for this most precious sign of Christ's enduring presence in the world. 20 Answers, the Eucharist is part of the 20 Answers series from Catholic Answers, offering hard facts, powerful arguments, and clear explanations of the most important topics facing the Church and the world, all in a compact, easy-to-read package. Visit shop.catholic.com today and take a look at this exciting new series from Catholic Answers Press.
Archbishop Charles Chaput of Philadelphia says of why we're Catholic: clear, practical, simply organized, very readable, and rich in content. It's a pleasure to recommend it. Bishop Thomas Olmsted of Phoenix says, this book is made for the challenges of our times. I highly recommend it. Why We're Catholic is the groundbreaking resource by apologist Trent Horn. That one book you can hand to anyone as a starting point for helping them find their way into or back to the practice of the Catholic faith. Plant seeds of faith in the hearts and minds of your non-Catholic friends and family. Order your copies of Why We're Catholic today. You can order your copies of Why We're Catholic by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
What difference does it make who or what you worship or what you believe? Sharing the faith used to make some people mad because it challenged their own strong beliefs. Today, it makes a lot of people yawn because they don't have strong beliefs about anything. Religious indifference is the great spiritual sickness of our age, a product of the relativism that dominates modern culture. This is Matt Nelson, and in my new book, Just Whatever, I'll take down the building blocks of religious indifference one by one. We'll look at the different kinds of indifference you tend to encounter in your friends and family members to see where they come from and why they're seductive. What you believe matters. Find out why and what to do about it in my new book, Just Whatever. You can order your copy of Just Whatever by calling 1-888-291-8000, by visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
How would you like to have the very best and faithful Catholic content delivered daily to your inbox? Articles, video, and audio, apologetics, current events, and commentary. The Catholic Answers Daily newsletter includes all that and more, and it's easy to sign up. Just visit Catholic.com today and look for the newsletter sign-up box on the front page. Keep up with what's happening in the Catholic Church with today's leading apologists, speakers, and writers, delivered daily to your inbox. Catholic Answers Daily. Sign up today at Catholic.com and get better at defending your faith one day at a time.
Are faith and science compatible? Join us this September 27th to the 30th as we tackle the topic of Catholic Answers' 5th National Apologetics Conference, Faith and Science, a lively and inspiring event designed to jumpstart your faith. Visit CatholicAnswersConference.com or call 1-888-291-8000 today to register. That's CatholicAnswersConference.com.
Welcome to Catholic Answers Live, the program where you participate with your questions about apologetics and evangelization, including the most important theological, spiritual, moral, and social issues facing the world today. Call now with your question for today's guest. Toll free 1-888-31-TRUTH. That's 888-318-7884. Now, from San Diego, Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to our great big giant Wednesday show here on Catholic Answers Live, and it just gets bigger and better as we go. Well, that makes it sound like I didn't think that Tim Staples was a big deal, but but it continues with its bigness and goodness. We welcome this hour Dr. Stacy Trasancos. She's Catholic educator, author, scientist. She has a doctorate in chemistry and master's degree in dogmatic theology from Holy Apostles College and Seminary. She was a research chemist for DuPont Chemical. She invented plastic, or is that right? No, that's not correct. You did not.
Spandex.
You invented spandex. That would be the greatest thing to have on your resume if that was true. I have to tell. We are joking. She did not invent spandex, but she is the author of "Science Was Born of Christianity" and "Particles of Faith," and an upcoming book. Right, another book coming. Oh, I don't want to forget this one. Also, a 20 Answers book, Bioethics. This is one of the 20 Answers in the Catholic Answers 20 Answers collection, Bioethics. She is the author of that one. And then you have another book coming out soon? Am I right or wrong?
Yes, you're right. We're turning Particles of Faith into a textbook for Catholic high schools.
Oh, great. Okay.
So
all right.
Everybody will be learning about these things.
If you will turn it into a textbook for middle schools, I will read it. If it's going to be, I can't do high school science, but middle school, I feel like I maybe could tackle that. So I'll look forward to that. Okay, so you're coming to our big Faith and Science conference. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But in anticipation of the conference, Tim Ryland, the editor of Catholic Answers magazine, said, hey, why don't I just do an entire issue devoted to faith and science? And then you got a lot of brilliant people to write in there. And you wrote an article on page 21 in there. That's where they put it, page 21. I'm not saying that the articles that came before it were better or anything like that. I'm just saying you're on page 21. And the name of the article is Evangelizing Through Evolution. And now I would like to scratch a needle across a record. What? Lots of people will just will pause at that one. Evangelizing through evolution. So first, give us an idea of is that really possible? We're so used to thinking of evolution as in opposition to religious faith. How can we use it to evangelize?
Because when we focus on disproving evolution, Christians stir up a crisis of their own making. We are pitting creation against the Creator. And by taking a bigger view of reality and in confidence professing the creed and saying God created everything and rolling up our sleeves and showing people that we're not afraid of the truth. We're not afraid to figure out how things work. We share our confidence. We show them how to use both faith and reason to figure out what's true. So that's what I mean by it.
You use an interesting statistic at the beginning of the article that it basically gives the impression that, and I take this to be the case as well, that people who are taught that faith and science are compatible and that faith and evolution are compatible generally don't lose their faith when they get exposed to evolutionary theory. The more evolution they learn, they're still fine. But people who are taught that there's an opposition between the book of Genesis, for example, and evolutionary theory, they don't go over to the middle camp that says, oh, these two things are compatible. They go over to the atheist camp, and they stop believing at all.
Right. And that happens so much. And that's what concerns me. That's why I speak about this. Because if you're taught, and I get it, when you read the catechism, I'm teaching my little second grader now to prepare him for First Communion. When you read what you're taught then, and then you're taught later that evolution tells maybe a different story, the children literally think they have to pick between one or the other, and it sets up this false dichotomy. And what we need to be doing with our children, especially as they get older, like at 10, 11, older than that, we need to be teaching them how to responsibly sort it out, how to not focus on disproving evolution because they think they have to pick one or the other, but we need to expose them to a wider reality. We need to show them how to navigate through these questions so that they are in that middle road, so that they don't think they have to pick one or the other. Because let me tell you something, when they get to be teenagers and they're already looking for reasons to maybe not follow the moral teachings of the church because they're hard, it's real easy when somebody walks along and says, well, evolution proves it's not true too. So it's not hard to talk them out of their faith if they haven't been properly formed. And I think it is part of the necessary formation to teach our young people how to understand evolution and creation both.
And in this article, you kind of lower the boom a little bit on Catholic institutions and individuals who insist that you have to teach the literal truth of Genesis and you have to reject evolutionary theory as people who are maybe because they want, out of a genuine desire, I'm sure, to be faithful to God, are actually teaching something that is not going to do what they want it to do. It is not going to help people embrace the faith. It's going to drive people away from the faith. Because people will have, if you give people a dichotomy, they have to resolve it one way or the other, and then they're very likely to resolve it in favor of science because that's what they get everywhere they go.
Right. And when you get to a college or even a high school biology class and you start learning about evolution and how it explains how these species arose and that species arose and how it explains what you see with your own eyes when you look out at the world every day and see the diversity of living things. When they hear that and it's like, this makes sense, this makes sense, this makes sense.
Right.
And then you have to pick one or the other. Okay, does this make sense, or does that story about Adam and Eve naked in a garden with a snake and an apple, does that make sense? And it starts to sound like everything they learned about faith is in the category with Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy.
Right, right.
And it's not, and that's what concerns me. Whereas if we teach children in high school, kids in high school, if we teach them, okay, this is what you learned when you were in first grade. This is what you're learning in biology now. Here's the good news. There's a bigger picture here. That creed you pray every time you go to Mass, believe it. Believe it with all your heart. God created everything. Everything. And now what you're learning in science class is more of the everything. And it makes them love science instead of being afraid of it.
Right, right. Okay, so what about the person who says then, okay, I accept that the Earth is not likely. I mean, there's not that we're not saying we've proven any of these things, but the person says, oh, as most of the church has, as popes seem to have, I accept that the Earth. It's not likely that the Earth is 6,000 years old. The Earth is billions of years old. Okay, but I can see that. Life is not like everything else, and that life, it looks to me like God just did a miracle and made life, because life is so much more complex even than the chemical world, the physical world. The biological world is so much more complex. Well, what do you say to the person who says that it's still miraculous? It still requires a miracle.
Yeah, and I think that's along the right path. I mean, all we ever have to say about evolution and Adam and Eve is that there is no scientific theory at all, and we can get into the details of that some other time. There's no scientific theory that will ever disprove a first man and a first woman. We will always have the possibility that it was a miracle. And for that matter, I like to remind people, and it means a lot to me, we don't even scientifically understand everything that happens when any one of us starts out in life. And some of us call that a new conception, of a new human person in the womb. We call that a miracle. So we we are not blind, or we are not narrowing our focus as Catholics. We have a broad vision. We understand that there is nature and the laws of nature, the things we study in science. We understand that there are also miracles because God holds it all in existence. And if he wants to do a miracle, work a miracle, he can anytime he wants to. The problem is we don't always know. Like, we definitely don't know. Back in the first emergence of the human species, we don't know exactly what happened, and we never will. But whereas an atheist starts out with the philosophical tenet, as Luke, who's here with me, was just explaining before, an atheist starts out with a beginning assumption that there is no God, there's no soul, there's nothing except science to explain how mankind arose. We have a bigger vision. And if we take a vision that says, well, evolution cannot be true, you're kind of playing the atheist game because you're limiting your view of reality in that way.
I see, yeah.
I say take the big view of reality of it all. Science is the study of the handiwork of God. Okay, got it. Now let's see what science has to say, understanding that we're not always going to have all the answers.
And if I pray the creed with confidence, and we should pray the creed with confidence, then I believe God is the maker of all things, visible and invisible. He's the creator of heaven and earth. Now, but the thing about the creed, though, is it doesn't get into the hows of any of that. It just affirms that that's a fact. I accept that as a fact. And most people won't accept that as a fact because they've heard, Carlo Broussard make a perfect philosophical argument for it. We accept it as a fact because at some point in our life we met Jesus. We know God. We know, and we know that this is the maker of all things. And we've learned who this is. And okay, so I start with this then as my starting point. Yep, that Jesus who I know in my life is really Jesus and really God, and God really is the creator of all. And now I turn to nature, and nature, I'm not worried about it. I'm not like, oh, well, what if I find something in nature that disproves that? No, I have confidence in that. Let's see what nature has and just start digging in. You're saying that that's a good recipe.
I'm saying that's a great recipe. And if you were to take my chemistry class now with that attitude, you would love chemistry.
Well, you said you believe in miracles. So,
but that's how it goes, and I've seen it happen with students. The students that I taught for 4 years at Colby Academy, I lost count of the number of ones who got back to me and said, "I'm going to become a scientist," because they get it. When you tell them science is the study of the handiwork of God, they understand why they get frustrated with physics equations and why balancing chemical equations is hard. But they're inspired to know more, to learn more.
I see. Yeah, because you also have a confidence in creation that there's a reason why this takes great intellect, because this is the product of great intellect.
You're studying the mind of God. God created a consistently interacting totality. And when you get into all those details of science, you start to say, whoa, I never understood God to be this big. You do, and I know it from personal experience. You have a much bigger understanding of who God is, what he can do. And you look at the world differently. You look at everything differently. I just stand there and look at leaves sometimes, and it's like mind blown because I know what's going on in there.
Yes, right, because you studied photosynthesis. That's part of what you're...
I love photosynthesis.
That is so nerdy. I'm glad to hear that you love photosynthesis. I want to remind people that Dr. Trasancos, our guest this hour, is also our special guest at our upcoming conference, September 27th through 30th, right here in beautiful and sunny San Diego. Tim Staples will be talking Jimmy Akin, Trent Horn, Carla Broussard, Chris Check, Father Hugh Barber. And joining Dr. Trasancos will be Dr. Father Terrence Ehrman. And Cardinal Burke will also be speaking at the conference. And it's all about faith and science, all from all different perspectives. What are you going to talk about there, Stacy?
I have the first talk, and it's called Science for Believers, and it's in the same spirit of what I just said, but it's also going to talk briefly about each of the topics that the other talks will be about, just to orient the thinking. And I have this thing I'm going to pass out to everyone. It's a surprise.
Oh, okay. Is it electrons?
It's called chemistry glasses.
Okay.
It's called chemistry glasses, and it's you have to be there to get your pair.
Oh, well, I will definitely be there. I will be standing at the foot of the stage, actually. So we only have This is all details, but we only have 5 rooms left at the $179 per night price. And the full conference ticket, of course, includes the banquet dinner with Cardinal Burke and square dancing with Jimmy. Everybody gets the square dance with Jimmy if they want on Thursday night. You and Jimmy will also be singing the periodic table. Is that correct? You have set the periodic table to music?
Yeah, Jimmy's going to be reading off the periodic table because he has it all memorized, and I don't have it memorized, but I'm going to be doing backup with talking about electron orbitals and quantum numbers and things like that. I just have the backup.
I'm both looking forward to this and dreading it. Well,
he'll have his white cowboy hat on, and I'll have my black one on.
All right, your calls for Dr. Stacy Trasancos right after this.
Stay with us for more Catholic Answers Live.
Father Robert Spitzer.
First of all, you will get a much deeper awareness of your faith, much deeper awareness of the evidence for your faith, explanations of tough theological issues, how science and reason and faith come together, and above all, a deeper awareness of how to practice your faith and how to live it.
Father Spitzer's Universe with Father Robert Spitzer. Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio.
Catholic Answers Live is brought to you in part by CatholicSingles.com, the website for Catholics who want to meet others who share their faith and values for faith, fellowship, and love. You can learn more at CatholicSingles.com. Catholic Answers Live thanks CatholicSingles.com for their generous support.
Homeschool Connections, an online provider of courses for your Catholic homeschool, is a sponsor of Catholic Answers Live. Homeschool Connections website is homeschoolconnections.com.
Call now with your question, 888-318-7884. This is Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I am Cy Kellett, your host. Our guest is Dr. Stacy Trasancos, scientist and theologian. Oh, it's one of my favorite things to say, scientist and theologian. And she is, we're talking about evangelization and evolution today. If you have questions about evolution, if you have questions about whether or not it is compatible with church teaching, or the ways in which there are various ways in which we might propose it to be compatible with church teaching, your calls are welcome. 888-318-7884, and I will not delay much longer getting to those calls, but I know you're in a very special place today.
Yes.
Dr. Trasancos, can you tell us about where you are and what you're doing?
I am sitting in the studios of St. Philip Institute, which is an institute for catechesis and evangelization that Bishop Joseph Strickland in Tyler, Texas, started with his Constitution on Teaching about a year and a half ago. And it's a really neat organization. Luke Heinschel is here with me. Say hi, Luke.
Hi, Luke.
Hi, everybody.
He set up the studio, and they're producing some great content, and we're getting it all organized and ready to share and promote. But the bishop's doing a lot, what I was talking about, teaching the young people, teaching the people here about the faith, so that we can evangelize better.
It's, we have been blessed with some absolutely wonderful bishops, and and we have that are so on fire to teach the faith. And I'm thinking about Archbishop Corleone up in San Francisco. He started an institute as well. His is on beauty and sacred beauty to start, and these things that the church has so long held in her patrimony, this love of learning, love of science, the love of teaching and beauty and music and all that. I think bishops are doing a great job with that, and that's wonderful to hear that. And is that your diocese? That's your home diocese, Tyler, Texas?
It's my home diocese. It's the diocese I grew up in, but I was never Catholic. And then I go up to the Northeast and convert to Catholicism in Massachusetts, live in New York, and then I come back home to be close to my parents. And lo and behold, all of this stuff is going on in this diocese I've wandered into, and it's wonderful. And I'm so thankful for Bishop Strickland and all the things that he's doing. And
that little story of your life, it almost makes it seem like God has a plan for each of us, doesn't it? You almost
Yeah. When you were talking about how people know from personal experience that Christ is real, I could go on and on and on. I call it the laboratory of my life. I have so much data that I'm convinced.
I love that you talk about even your faith, you talk about in terms of data. Conrad in Cork, Ireland is listening on EWTN there. You know that EWTN's on in Great Britain and Ireland now. So,
Wow.
Conrad, your question for chemist and theologian Stacy Trasancos. Oh, no. Stacy, that was a disaster. First call from Ireland. I hung up on him.
We're
Conrad,
so sorry.
I am the worst. That is just terrible. I got so excited, I pushed the wrong button, and that's horrifying to me. I apologize, Conrad. Please call back. You will be first up. And I have Andrew from Fort Worth next, but that line is not the correct line. So somebody's gonna. You know what? We're gonna play phone roulette. We're going to a caller. Hello. Say hello, caller. Are you there?
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes, and Dr. Trasancos can hear you.
Oh, yeah, I didn't hear the call screener didn't say anything, but here I am. I'm Scott. I'm from near Dallas, Texas. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Scott. Your question for Dr. Trasancos.
Hear what I just said? Okay, yeah, my question is, hey, so I hope you don't hang up on me, but my question is, the Bible talks about how, of course, God made everything, and isn't the point of Genesis that God made it and it was good? Isn't that the point of Genesis? Would you mind commenting on that question?
That's one of the points of Genesis, that God made everything and that it's good. I'm not sure what you want me to comment on there. I have asked myself the question before, like, why did he make mosquitoes who just suck blood out of people and leave them with itchy bumps? But in thinking about it, I decided that maybe even mosquitoes are part of God's plan, or certainly they're part of God's plan, and they're good in their way, but I just don't understand the big picture completely yet. So I keep the faith and keep going and wait for my mosquito bites to heal.
Scott, what do you make of that?
My mom once sat me down and said, this is a long time ago, and said, Scott, man evolved from the ape. Now, what would you say to her if she said that to me now? It's possible.
Okay. What would you say? Thank you, Scott. So that's a very precise question. What do you say to someone who says, man evolved from apes?
Well, it's ape-like creatures, not apes. So there was a different lineage, but to get your head, so it sounds shocking, and it's supposed to be shocking, but if you follow the logic back step by step, you go back to the common ancestor of all humanity, and you keep going back, what came before that, what came before that, what came before that, there is, in your mind, you can visualize this succession of changes in living things over time. And if you keep going back just as a logical exercise, and I walk through this in Particles of Faith, because I do push the logic as far as I can. If you go all the way back, what was the very first living thing? And so I don't even say man evolved from ape-like creatures. Keep going. What did ape-like creatures evolve from? And if you keep going back, you come to, well, what was the first emergence of life? Any biology book will tell you we aren't sure, but it's reasonable to come up with theories about how atoms might have come together to make molecules that organized, that formed a living system. But if you keep going back before that, where did atoms come from? And you keep going back, the best evidence and theories that we have right now take us back to the Big Bang. But you're always going to say, no matter what all of that is, you're going to still be able to say the creed. You're going to be able to say God created all of this. And when we start talking about what evolved from what, we're just talking about how matter and energy work according to the laws of nature that God created.
Scott, I didn't hang up on you, so I met your challenge. Thanks very much. You made it worth our while to play phone line roulette. I believe Conrad in Cork, Ireland is back. He's listening to EWTN in Ireland. Conrad, I'm so sorry. Are you there?
That's okay. Hi, Si. It's a pleasure to talk to you at last.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm glad you got Dr. Trasancos there, because a question that's been playing on my mind for a long time is the miracle at Cana. Can't you explain how the water is turned into wine? Where did the extra atoms, carbon atoms, come from?
Oh, okay. So they're chemically, how is that possible? Question. Yeah, right. For water to turn into wine, as Jesus did at Cana.
Yeah. The best explanation of that, first of all, it's a miracle, and God can make miracles with anything. He can do anything, and we believe our understanding of miracles is that God works them for the purpose of our salvation. But how did the water become wine? Well, something C.S. Lewis points out, and I love it, in his book on miracles, is that water, all wine comes from water. Wine starts out being water. There's water involved in the growth of the grapes and the plants. There's water involved in the process of making the wine. So there is water. Wine is just stuff dissolved and floating around in water. But how did water become the wine? You can think of it as a miracle of speeding things up in time. But if you want to get down to saying, so that's what C.S. Lewis says, and I like that. But fundamentally, you have to step back from all of it and realize that asking where did the extra carbon atoms come from to make the wine out of the water, you're really asking where did that extra particulate stuff come from that's floating around in the water that makes it wine. It's a miracle. We don't know. And there's no point really in asking or trying to figure that out, because you'll never have a way to verify if you found the truth or not. The truth is it was a miracle.
Conrad, is that at all satisfying to you?
Well, it's a disappointing explanation from a chemist that she would say that it happened magically.
Not magically.
That's a disappointment. Miracles and magic share a common definition.
Well, let me tell you something.
Sorry. Conrad, don't go anywhere. Hang on.
Don't go anywhere, Conrad.
We're having too much fun, but this is a good
I'll
conversation. All right, Dr. Stacy Trasancos is our guest. She will be featured speaker at our Catholic Answers conference coming up at the end of next month. We hope you'll be there. 888-31-TRUTH is our number if you'd like to speak with her. We're talking about evolution and evangelization today, and also just taking questions about water and wine and miracles and all that. We'll be right back after this with more.
Catholic Answers Live.
A generation ago, Christian parents didn't have to worry about how to explain transgenderism to their 9-year-old or help their teenager deal with mockery at school for believing in traditional marriage. But today, as our culture's moral center continues to fly apart, and with every form of deviance publicly aired and celebrated, we have no choice but to equip our kids to understand about such issues. In Made This Way, How to Prepare Kids to Face Today's Tough Moral Issues, Layla Miller and Trent Horn give parents the crucial tools and techniques to form children with the understanding they need, appropriate to their age and maturity level, to meet the world's challenges. Silence can no longer be an option. If we're not teaching our children how to understand tough moral issues, then the world will. Read Made This Way and learn how to give your kids a firm foundation on which to build a life of moral clarity and happiness. Order your copy of Made This Way today by calling 1-888-291-8000 or logging on to the shop at Catholic.com.
Did you know that all of the books, booklets, DVDs, and CDs that Catholic Answers publishes can be found as close as your neighborhood Catholic bookstore? Catholic Answers proudly partners with hundreds of Catholic bookstores across the nation and the world to bring you quality resources in the areas of apologetics and evangelization from a name you know you can trust. So stop on in and give your local Catholic bookstore a visit and see what they've got that's new from Catholic Answers. You can also find us online at shop.catholic.com. We're Catholic Answers, the most trusted name in Catholic apologetics.
Hi, this is Dr. David Anders. There are a lot of misconceptions about the Catholic faith. We clear them up on Call to Communion, tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio. Now, back to Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. We're talking with Conrad in Ireland, in Cork, Ireland, who I hung up on once and then got back on the line, and he's been gracious to me despite the fact that I flubbed my first call from Ireland. And Conrad was asking about chemically how could it be that water was turned into wine. And I have to say, he was disappointed in your answer as a chemist, and to hear an Irish person be disappointed in me makes me feel very bad, very bad. I need you to help me out.
Yeah.
So, what else can you give Conrad?
Hey, Conrad, I wanted to say, I get it. I get what you're saying because I'm a convert and I had to struggle with that stuff too. But what I realized about miracles is that you can't explain them. That's why they're miracles. And let me tell you something. Every time I go to Mass, I sit there and I watch this wafer of bread and this cup of wine become the body and blood of Christ. And I know as a chemist, the electrons aren't doing anything differently as that happens, but I believe it. It is an article of faith, but I believe it because Christ said so. Christ said, this is my body, this is my blood. And if I don't believe that he can make things so as they're supposed to be, then I don't have anything to center my faith on. And so I start from that fundamental tenet of the Eucharist, and everything else flows from that. And my answer on the miracle of the water to wine is one of those things that flows from that. It's all about the Eucharist and the electrons.
Conrad?
I'm listening. I'm listening. Actually, being brought up by parents who are really devout Catholics, I believed all this was really until I started thinking about it for myself, and I'm afraid I'm not satisfied with those answers at all. And I just don't believe blindly because somebody said it.
I respect that.
I don't think Dr. Trasancos carries out her experiments with the experiment, the control, and another experiment in the corner just to see if there's miracles performed in it. Miracles are ignored in the world of real science. So how can she combine her belief and her belief in magic?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. It was like this for me. It was about seeing a bigger vision of reality. Before I believed everything had to be answered by science. Everything had to be answered by science because that's all I believed. I didn't think there was anything spiritual. I didn't think there was a soul. I didn't think there were angels. I didn't think there was God. When I had children and I got older and I started thinking about the meaning of life and where we go after we die and what's the point of all of this, because there's really no point if you're just atoms and molecules doing their thing and then you die and rot. There's no point. And that's when I started asking questions and I started studying the Catholic faith, which has answers and answers and answers for everything, which is why Catholic Answers is here giving those answers. And it made more sense. I understood not just science. I understood the spiritual realities, the practice of virtues, that our lives, our bodies and souls, were supposed to be getting to heaven. That's the purpose of every decision we make in life, is trying to get to heaven and trying to lead others to heaven. It's all about faith, hope, and love. And I've had so many instances where that way of leading my life has been so fulfilling. I'm not saying I avoided suffering or avoided pain. In fact, I probably brought more suffering and pain on by taking that stance in life. But it's rewarding and fulfilling, and it makes more sense to me because just thinking science had all the answers for everything was not making sense. It didn't make sense of my own existence.
So, Conrad, is that something that interests you at all, the fact that for Dr. Trasancos, as a scientist, it wasn't stopping asking questions that led her to faith, it was asking more and more questions that brought her to faith?
Yeah, well, all I will say is that unfortunately, I went in an opposite direction, and it made the text contained in the books regarding magic tricks like that made me lose any respect I had for Christianity. And talking to a chemist now, I thought that, she might give me an insight into how an educated chemist can combine these two completely opposing worldviews, if you like. And to be interesting to hear what she says now on your debate on science and faith in San Diego. I'd love to be there.
Yeah, I wish you could be, because we would talk about this a lot more. I mean, for me, it was simply a humble and very reasonable admission that, hey, I don't know everything. And it made my life more exciting because then I could spend my life searching for truth instead of thinking I had to limit myself to science to find all truth, because I knew I couldn't.
wish I could afford a plane ticket from Ireland, but I don't have the bucks, Conrad. I'm sorry, but we'd love to see you there. If by some miracle, I know you don't believe in miracles, but that you can make it to San Diego, we'll let you in. I'm certain that we'll let you in.
Well, just answer my questions honestly, and I'll be happy. As for life having meaning, I think life is its own meaning. You know, I'm a parent. I have 2 kids, and I've brought them up best I can, and now they're 2 fine, upstanding, trouble-free citizens of whom I'm very proud.
Well, I'm glad you're proud of them, and that's a beautiful thing. And thanks for sharing it with us. But now that you know we're here, let's continue to have conversations. I hope you'll call, and I'll let you know too. Tuesdays and Thursdays, open line. You can ask any question you want. And Dr. Trasancos, how often are you on? Maybe once a month, every 6 weeks?
Oh, once a month.
Once a month?
Once a month.
Maybe we can get that down to once every 6 weeks if we work on it. But I apologize. That
the wrong way.
I went the wrong way with that. Conrad, call back anytime. Thank you so much. Our first call from Ireland, and I messed it up. I can't believe
Conrad.
it. Andrew in Fort Worth, you are up next with Dr. Stacy Trasancos. Your question.
Yes, my original question was when it comes to biology and how evolution developed, could other animals been the ones that would have developed instead and developed the link from instinctual to rational being?
Oh, so could we have could like the human level of rationality just be evolved, is what you're saying? Like the kind of rationality we have, could that just have evolved?
I'm saying had courses been different, like maybe different planetary biology.
Right. Could another animal have, like, could T-Rex have become rational like we are?
Yeah, and like could T-Rexes be publishing science journals now and communicating via Skype and starting institutes? And
the short hands there would make it impossible for them to communicate via Skype. But other than that,
No, but it's a good question. I'm not making fun of the question. I like that question because it's the same question that scientists now ask when they are looking for life in other places in the cosmos. When they look for life elsewhere, scientists first look for the things we know to be conducive to life, like water and certain molecules. But they also realize that life could have arisen somewhere else in the cosmos on another planet somewhere by some other means that we don't even know about yet or can't even imagine yet. So on one hand, it's possible that another body could have evolved to be rational today, but it didn't. So we're here. Humans have spread throughout the planet, and we are the ones who, when we talk about the human person, we're talking about a human body, as we call it, and a human soul. So it's a good question, but I don't think it's one of those, like I try to sort my questions out. Can I actually answer this, or can I just think and speculate? This is one of those things that will always be left to speculate about. It's possible, but we're here and we have what we have, and so we really don't have a way to find the answer to that question.
Andrew, what do you make of that?
Yeah, that was mostly just a speculative question of something that I basically knew, but also just my love of the aspect of biology and how it develops. So,
but I think,
thank you for the time now.
If I may say, Andrew, and I think Dr. Trasancos, we can confidently say that no animal could evolve a soul like a human soul, because the human soul is not a product of evolution. But what God could have done, giving a rational soul to a different kind of creature, we don't know about that.
Mm-hmm. Right. God could have. Yeah, the rational soul does not evolve. It's created immediately out of nothing by God. That's one of the things that we have to profess and we can't deny. But could another animal have been given the rational soul? I suppose it's possible. but it didn't happen. But I like that question. I think there is value in asking speculative questions. That's one thing that theologians need to get comfortable doing, because that's how you explore the nooks and crannies of the reasoning process. Sometimes you try on a speculative theory to see how it feels and to explore it by imagining that it might be true, only so you can figure out that it's not true. But you have to be willing to go boldly forth and pursue truth in that way. So I think speculative questions are excellent, and they're a lot of fun too.
And that is something that is in your article. If I could just kind of repeat that for folks, in your article in the current issue of Catholic Answers magazine, where you talk about evolution and evangelization, the first rule of kind of harmonizing this call to evangelize and the call to be rational and reasonable in examining evolution is don't be afraid. You say that you follow that up with have confidence in the creed. And evangelize using science. But the first rule is kind of an intellectual rule. Don't be afraid to ask questions, to find out, to search. That's good. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, we have nothing to fear from the truth, because you know what they say, the truth will set you free. So it's a good thing to know. And I can tell you, as a scientist doing research, you get very little truth sometimes. Like, most of the time your experiments fail, and most of the time you don't understand completely how to explain things. That's why they come up with theories, but that's also why theories are always subject to revision and changing, because we know a little more. But all scientists know, all of them know, every one of them, even if they don't admit it, that no theory fully explains everything. We know more about the atom than anything else in science, I think, but we still know there are things we don't know. Yeah. So that's a good thing. It makes life fun, because if we had all the answers, then we could just shut up and wait to die. Instead, we can ask all these exciting questions and search for truth.
If we did have all the answers, the thing is, though, if we did have all the answers, we'd forget them. We don't have the memory capacity to hold them all in our head, anyways. Yeah. Hey, we have this back to school sale, and we're selling this 20 Answers student pack of a collection of 20 Answers books that should be helpful to students. And you're on the very top of it is your brand new bioethics, 20 Answers on bioethics. Could you just tell me a little bit about what's in the book?
Well, there are 20 questions about bioethics that I thought were the most difficult and the most important to answer. So the book goes from what is bioethics to beginning of life and end of life issues. But I started the book after answering what is bioethics. I talk about the human person. What is the Catholic understanding of the human person? Because I think that is central to everything in bioethics. If you think the human person is just a bunch of atoms and molecules waiting for the energy to go the other direction and to rot, that's one view of bioethics, which all you are left with is trying to avoid suffering at all cost. And we see where that gets us in society with euthanasia and abortion and all those things. The Catholic understanding says that the human person is body and soul, and that we are made in the image and likeness of God, and that we are made to have intellect and free will, and to exercise our intellect and make good choices with our free will, because we are supposed to get to heaven. We're supposed to become saints. And so our lives aren't all about avoiding suffering. Our lives are about getting to heaven. Our lives, at the end of our lives, death is an entrance into eternal life. And so our life has a purpose. And if you don't understand that about bioethics, then your reasoning goes the wrong way completely. So to understand that it's not about avoiding suffering at all costs, and that we must defend life, we should never kill an innocent human person, those two things right there will guide just about every bioethical question.
And boy, the students really could benefit from that. Just getting what is a human being kind of right and not terribly wrong, like most of our society does now, goes a long way to setting your life headed in the right direction. You can get that book and the whole pack by going to shop.catholic.com right now and click on the special back to school category, shop.catholic.com.
This is Bishop James Conley of the Diocese of Lincoln. Keep it right here on Catholic Answers Live.
EWTN, communicating the faith.
I had to go through fear, and thank God that I overcame the fear, and I just left it up to God, and now there's no more fear, there's just acceptance, and I'm just learning to listen. If you want to be closer to God, you just need to keep following His rules, and your application, your radio station, has helped me to always be positive and continue to listen to the rules and obey.
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
St. John Paul II stated that, for the disciple of Christ, evangelization is a duty, an obligation of love, and the Catechism of the Catholic Church states that evangelization is necessary for salvation.
So we know we're called, but how do we do it?
St. Paul Street Evangelization can help. To learn more, contact us at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
Call now with your question. 888-318-7884. This is Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Dr. Stacy Trasancos, our guest this hour. She's got a brand new article in the brand new issue of Catholic Answers magazine on evolution and evangelization. And we're taking calls on that topic, 888-31-TRUTH, the number. And Jonathan in Lubbock, Texas, listening on Victory Radio. You are up next. Your question for Dr. Stacy Trasancos.
Helen, thank you. I am a physician. I was a chemistry major, so I got exposure to the basic sciences.
Okay, Jonathan, I'm very sorry to interrupt you, but it's going to be hard for us to hear you unless you can get closer to a phone or something. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it's so you're a physician and you have a basic education in the physical sciences.
Yes, and just chemistry was my undergraduate. Went on to medical school. I was always a Catholic and always felt comfortable with evolution being compatible with Catholicism. But the more I study the biology of the body, it becomes more evident to me, rationally, that evolution is not rational. So I've kind of lost my faith in evolution because of the complexity of the body. I wonder if there's an association with basic scientists being more evolutionists and more the natural scientists being more creationists, if you will. Have you ever come across that?
I'm not sure I understand what you're asking. Are you talking about intelligent design theory at all, or are you talking about young Earth?
Well, no, I'm just talking about, I don't know, I Googled Earth, it's 5 billion years old, and that's not a very long time to go through the whole evolution process if the human body hasn't changed much in 50,000 years. And so the more I learn about the complexity of stuff I do on a day-to-day basis, I say, there's just no way. There's not enough time in the history of the Earth to have evolution come up with this stuff. There must be something else. And so I wonder if basic scientists lean one way and the practical science people lean another way.
Yeah, well, this is how I lean. I mean, it's really, it doesn't mean anything to say that there wasn't enough time for this to happen, because that would presuppose that you're outside of all science and you know everything about science and you understand exactly how everything happens down to the quark and the electron. And then you can say, no, this is impossible. What happens anytime that people get into, and I've watched it happen over and over again, when people get into the scientific debates about evolution and creation, the answer is usually that if something in science doesn't seem to explain everything, it's because science doesn't have the answer for everything. There's so many things, even in science, that we can't understand. The complexity of the human body is one of them. But to say there wasn't time for evolution to happen to this point today, that presupposes that you know exactly what it would take and what it wouldn't take. And we don't. I know there's been a recent debate about convergent evolution and divergent evolution, and that's just one example where if in the very beginning, if the Christians, the intelligent design theorists, hadn't been worried about disproving evolution, if they had just said, you know, we will never actually know the exact genetics of a first man and woman who are progenitors of the human race, if they just would have accepted that, you wouldn't have even got into this debate about, you know, could this genetic pathway have led to a first man and woman or not? My point is that in almost every one of the scientific debates, it comes back down to what I keep saying is that we just don't know everything. And I know that sounds disappointing sometimes, but it's just the truth. We don't know everything. And so our reasoning should be more guided by what do I know that I know? What do I not know but I can find the answer to? And what do I not know and I have no hope of finding the answer to, or I might not ever know the full answer? Like just sorting out your questions, asking the better questions gets you to a better answer. And I don't think a Christian should ever be saying, no way, God couldn't have made matter and energy to create all of this life forms today. So he had to work a miracle because he just couldn't have done it. Because what we're saying is just because we don't understand it, God couldn't have done it. That's anthropomorphizing God. And it's really a limit of our own human understanding that we're imposing on God. And I think the healthier view is to step back and say, God did all of this. Wow. Holy cow, and then go figure out how he did it and try to get as much information as we can, which is where science comes in. Dive into the science and learn all you can about it.
Well, I don't know. I guess I'm not convinced either, because it sounds like some people take evolution as a given, and we don't know how God did it, but he sure did it. To me, that doesn't make sense. I'm an evolutionist by nature. I'm not against it, and I'm very compatible. I'm not a 6,000, year person. But if the human body has not changed in 50,000 years, and there's only 5 billion to start with, that's only 100,000 quanta to come all the way through. It's so complex. It's mind-boggling. The complexity of the human body. As a physician, I treat every day.
Yeah.
We can treat the edge of it, not the essence of it. Anyway,
is it possible? May I ask this? Is it possible to think of creation as with God? It constantly is present to his creation. It's not like he's a watchmaker who made it and dropped it off somewhere. He's constantly present to it, and it is really impressive that something like going from bacteria to multi-celled creatures to complex animals and human beings, that would seem to suggest that there is not just a random something to evolution, but that the universe itself is created to prefer complexity. Because if it's just survival of the fittest, then bacteria were perfectly fit. They covered the entire Earth before there were other life forms. They were doing fine. They didn't need to become multi-celled organisms. So that there's something about the way God has created Earth and continues in his relationship with creation that things actually move with purpose towards greater complexity.
Mm-hmm.
Is that possible?
That's fine to believe that. And I thought oat bran was great for you. And of course, estrogen was on and on and on and on.
I'm afraid we're having trouble hearing you, Doctor. Now I'll go to Dr. Stacy. Is what I said possible, or are you? Does that not?
Oh yeah.
Oh okay.
Yeah. We believe that God creates everything out of nothing. Creates. We don't really have the right word for it. He's always holding everything in existence. If he forgot about us for one instant, everything would cease to exist. But God holds everything in existence. And it like to a chemist, evolution is fundamentally all about what the electrons are doing. They're following these amazing laws of nature, doing their thing. And that's the basis of why atoms bond and why proteins fold and why this complexity arises. And when I read that scripture that says God knows all the hairs on our heads, I'm thinking, and he knows where all the electrons are and all the atoms that make up all the keratin and all the proteins on the hairs of my head. And it's just this bigger view of it. And, we don't know where all the electrons are. In your body right now, we have a quantum mechanical understanding of what all those electrons and particles are doing right now in your hands, in the air you're breathing, all around you. But we don't ever, instead of saying God couldn't be doing that, it's much better to say, thank you, God. Thank you for all of this. And understanding quantum mechanics gives you a deeper appreciation for just what it means when we say creation.
That's exactly my point. The deeper you get into it, the more I say it had to be creation and couldn't just be evolution.
Well, I think the key point, Doctor, is that Dr. Trasancos does not distinguish between creation and evolution. If evolution is true, then it is one aspect of creation.
Nature is creation.
But I'm just saying, as a rational, smart enough doctor, I don't know a lot, but just from my angle, the more I understand the body, the less likely, rationally, to me, evolution is. I'm okay with any of the above. Anything God wanted to do is fine. There's no problem. It's just so complex. It is so complex. Like, pull up an immunology textbook, and that's just the tip of immunology or whatever you want, neurobiology. It's just...
There are biologists who are asking these very questions, though, at this moment. Like, how did it get so complex so quickly?
Yeah, and...
Oh, sorry. Several different things are going on at once. Doctor, we'll have to thank you for your call.
Thank you.
Stacy Trasancos, thank you for a very fine hour.
Thank you.
And
it goes by fast.
Tell us again where you are. You're at the St. Philip Institute?
The St. Philip Institute in the Diocese of Tyler, with where Bishop Joseph Strickland is, and we are teaching the faith here down in East Texas.
And probably doing it in a big way, because you do everything bigger down there in Texas, right?
Very big. Yes, very big.
Well, we'll see you in a month at our conference, hopefully with lots and lots of other people. Hundreds and hundreds have signed up now. So all I'm saying is you better be good. All right?
Thank you. I'll try.
We're counting on you. Thanks, Dr. Trasancos. Tomorrow, 2 hours of open forum. And if you call from Ireland, I will not hang up on you. Unless I don't like you. No, even then, I won't hang up on you. See you tomorrow, God willing, on Catholic Answers Live.